Woo! Yeah. What's up? Michael and BJ.
Michael and BJ got married.
Soon we'll get us all in the same studio together.
In the same room. In the same room, Michael. So all I want to know is who's the big spoon, who's the little spoon.
Where are you guys?
No answer?
Tell the
I'm
public.
not sure if it is.
No comment.
Yeah, I don't know if in the PC culture that we have, we can say big or small.
There's other people in the room. We don't want to.
We're all equal, right?
Wait, what's that phrase that people say when they don't want to testify against themselves? Like, oh, I reserve the right to not.
Yeah, take the fifth.
Take the fifth.
Never gets old.
No, I love it, dude. It's pretty amazing. Well, welcome back, everyone. How's everyone doing on this episode 11 of the Bitbrain podcast? How are you guys? Mariano, your hair is looking amazing as always.
Oh, thank you.
Mariano has great hair.
It's always getting better. It's not getting worse. What's the
Mariano?
I can't wait for the peak.
But dude, your background is always different. You either come from the White House or you got a Fender Telecaster behind you.
You got a hat on.
You got a sword.
You know what I have? You know what I have behind me now? You want to guess?
What's up?
It's a pole.
Stripper pole.
All right.
Nice. Show us your moves.
We took that a different way, didn't we?
Yeah.
We can do a segment where it's like what's behind Mariano's curls, and I'm gonna do like this, and it's always something.
What's behind the curls?
Well, I'll tell you what. Like and subscribe for that. You guys want to see more Mariano's curls and the
if you wanna
and the stripper pole.
If you want to see Mariano use the pole, subscribe to his
his OnlyFans.
Like, subscribe, and comment. That's what's up. So today, guys, of all days, right? Today's FOMC day. So, we actually just had the Fed actually come out, and they do this I think it's on average like every 6 weeks, right? So today was, they actually decided to decline to hike, essentially. So they're standing pat, but they point to rates staying higher for longer. So looks like the Federal Reserve held interest rates steady in a decision released today. While also indicating that it still expects one more hike before the end of the year, likely a quarter point, and fewer cuts than previously indicated next year. So that final increase, if realized, would do it for this rate hiking cycle, according to projections that the central bank released at the end of its two-day meeting. So if the Fed goes ahead with the move, it would make a full dozen hikes since the policy tightening began in March of last year. So I'm going to kick it over to you, VJ, our resident global macro guru. So what does this mean? Unpack this for us a little bit. Is this kind of a nothing burger? Was it expected? And if so, what does this mean?
Yeah, no, it was expected. The market was expecting that the Fed is going to pass on the interest rate. And Jerome Powell has been saying it for a long period of time, higher for longer. They also signaled that inflation is sticky, right? Inflation is not coming down to the extent that they were thinking of. They also mentioned about having one more interest rate hike. And if you listen to what they are thinking about, we are most likely going to have a recession. I don't know whether we talked about it in one of the previous Bitbrain podcasts. There was a Russian hacker who pretended to be the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, and interviewed Jerome Powell. This happened
I didn't see that.
This happened a few months ago, and maybe in January of this year, if I'm right. And Jerome Powell said that we're most likely going to have a recession, but looks like we might have a smooth landing, right? This is being able to predict your turning a massive ship. And you have to turn at the right angle. If you turn too quickly, you're going to overshoot. If you turn too slow, then you may not make the turn. So this requires a very careful turn, and that careful turn, it's called soft landing. And the S&P actually dropped when the Fed paused the interest rate hike. There was a lot of expectation around lowering the interest rates. I don't think that's going to happen. We're going to have one more interest rate hike, and then maybe we're going to start seeing the interest rate being reduced going into next year. So yeah, so that's where we are. My personal opinion, I still think that the Federal Reserve overcorrected. They have increased the interest rate at a really fast rate, and we are now at like a 2-decade high in terms of interest rates. And typically, the interest rate hikes, for it to ripple into the economy, it's going to take anywhere from 18 to 24 months. This started last year, so we're going to see the effects of it probably sometime next year.
Yeah, very interesting, BJ. I agree with you. And what's also interesting about this is that the Fed, as we know, has a dual mandate, right? So it's to kind of keep interest rates right around 2%, as well as full employment, right? Whatever full employment means. But now what you've seen is they've continued to increase rates, trying to get unemployment higher, right? Because unemployment, the more people unemployed, the less inflation, according to their metrics, right? So, but now you've seen what's been going on with UAW, right? So that's another thing that's been kind of thrown into the mix here as of last week, with now this talk of strike. And I actually thought I read an article this morning that maybe it was Ford or GM, but they're actually laying off more workers. Actually, I think it's Cadillac, where they manufacture the CT4 or CTS or something like that. They are essentially closing that plant down. So I think it's interesting that that's occurring in lieu of what's been going on as it relates to interest rates. And so the Fed needing to see higher unemployment rate numbers in order for them to maybe soften or cut rates. So we could see an interesting dynamic, I think, here going over the next few months, depending on what the unemployment numbers now look like after we've seen some of these cuts, after we've seen some of these job losses as of recent. So I don't know if you have any comments on that in particular either.
Yeah, Jerome Powell made a comment in his press conference where he said that the economic activity has been stronger than what they had expected, right? So they are also somewhat confused that they are increasing the interest rate and the economy is also zooming. Why is the stock market close to all-time highs and unemployment rate being down? What the unemployment rate, just looking at it in absolute, doesn't take into account is that many people who are making like $30, $40 an hour are now getting paid $12, $15 an hour, right? And at the same time, gas is at $4 or $5 in some parts of the country. Inflation is still high in terms of what people are feeling on the streets. So Paul said that we have to do more with rates. And in some ways, they're also confused. Why isn't the economy reacting quick enough? They are increasing the interest rates and the economy is also increasing. You typically want to see economic slowdown, and we are not seeing that. So I think that we'll have to see next year. There is going to be the economic slowdown. We probably will see next year.
Interesting. Got it. Okay. Any other comments from you guys, Michael, Mariano, on this particular subject?
No, I think it's interesting that they telegraph it. Like why are they like saying this is what we expect to do instead of sort of letting us guess every month? What's the purpose of that?
The Federal Reserve has 150 PhDs who are working, and it is, as I mentioned, like navigating a very large ship, right? And you have to kind of predict what to do. It's a very complex structure. It's not as easy as there is a steering wheel for the ship. The Fed has like two steering wheels, so to speak, the fiscal and monetary policy, and they are not very precise tools, right? They are very blunt instruments to be able to control the entire economy. And those are the only two results that you can have, or only two levers that you can have to determine how to turn the ship. So,
I think what's interesting to kind of answer your question, Michael, is that they're looking at a variety and a myriad of different tools, right, and factors. And so you're looking at CPI, you're looking at PCE, you're looking at unemployment, you're looking at all these, and all this data gets monitored very, very closely, and those numbers come out pretty much on like a monthly rhythm. So then the Fed, when they meet, they're constantly determining on monetary policy based on what those numbers, what those inputs are telling them. And to BJ's point, they have 150 PhDs, but if really all they did is just use Chat GPT, maybe they'd be much better off.
Yeah, so, yes. I mean, Dominic, I think you raise a fair point. I'm gonna say something a little controversial, but there is the possibility that we're not contemplating that simply nobody knows shit, just the way it is. It's everyone at the Fed. They say that they are, like these super professional, super highly capable people, but maybe they just make it up. We don't know. Yeah, well, there's that argument too, Mariano. I mean, like, hey, we're a crypto podcast, right? We're crypto enthusiasts, and I come from probably a more libertarian bent that, hey, listen, let the market set interest rates. I'm not exactly a huge proponent of the Fed, so Dominic is full Javier Milei now.
What's that, Mariano?
Dominic, you are now full Javier Milei.
Okay, it's very interesting of what he's doing. That Tucker interview with him, that Carl Tucker interview that he that happened down in your hometown, buddy, the last week. That was pretty interesting, man. But nevertheless,
history, yeah.
Yeah, I mean the Fed essentially sets a market rate for short-term interest rates, not long-term interest rates, but short-term interest rates, right? So there's a lot of thoughts around that. Hey, why do we need a Federal Reserve? They do have a mandate to keep unemployment at a certain rate, and 2% CPI, which effectively means that you lose 2% of your purchasing power every single year, which frankly is bullshit because they exclude food, energy. I love what they call volatile food and energy costs. No, they're not volatile. They're volatile because you guys are printing the hell out of the dollar. That's why they're volatile. So anyways, it's political. So I don't want to get on too much of a rant here, but you bring up an interesting question or point there, Mariano.
Is there an official CPI index that measures these other things that are not being taken into account? And what's that measuring at?
Oh yeah, like you can go to shadowstats.com, I think has an official or an unofficial CPI. You might have to pay for it behind a paywall, but generally the official CPI numbers and the shadow stats number are typically very far apart. When I say very far apart, like you could see like maybe 5 or 6% official inflation from CPI from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and something more like 9 or 10% from shadow stats, right? Because they'll actually include food, they'll include energy, they'll include, pretty much all of the components of the cost of living, rather than just what serves the current administration, because they're able to influence the Bureau of Labor Statistics and saying, oh, well, we kind of want to redefine what a recession is. We're not in a recession because a recession sounds bad because we're leading the charge here, and we don't want to be seen as being, presiding over a recession. So it's all bullshit. It's politics, but it is what it is. But they set monetary policy. They set the interest rates for money. So if you got a lot of money, you got to pay attention to what he's saying. Speaking of someone who does have a lot of money, that's Mark Cuban. And Mark Cuban now has $870,000 less than he had just a week ago due to a crypto scam. So he says they must have been watching. Well, come on, Mark, you should be smarter than that. They don't. Of course, they're watching, right? But Mark Cuban, entrepreneur, obviously everybody knows he's he's the owner of the Dallas Mavericks. He lost around $870,000 due to a hack. He said he moved his remaining funds to Coinbase custody. Oh, great, Mark. That's not exactly safer. But billionaire entrepreneur, owner of the Mavericks, confirmed to DL News that he lost approximately $870,000 with a crypto scam late on Friday. The sudden movements in a wallet marked on a blockchain Explorer Etherscan as Mark Cuban 2 were first spotted by pseudonymous on-chain sleuth Woz Crypto. And Cuban was unaware of some of the wallet movements when approached by DL News, and later said, "Someone got me for 5 ETH." Well, might have been a little bit more than that. Cuban losses extended beyond 5 ETH worth about $9,000 at current prices, although he was set back by around 870 grand across 10 cryptos. So another one bites the dust, even though he didn't bite the dust, but one of his wallets bit the dust. So what do you got? Who wants to take this football first?
So
Tell us
I mean,
how that happens, or
so I was looking into that, Michael, and like the article doesn't mention what it is, but I reviewed the transactions, and it looked like a drainer essentially, right? So it withdrew everything ETH first, then withdrew all the tokens subsequently from high value to low value, and it overpaid for the gas significantly. So it looks like something like that. He put some excuse saying that he downloaded like a fake version of MetaMask. I don't buy that, because I feel like if that would have been the case, at the instant moment that he deposited like the first tokens, it would have been over, right? But he says that it was like months and months that it was like still there.
That's pretty wild. I mean, it's pretty clever for a hacker to like sit for that long, if that really was the case.
Be patient, yeah.
I feel like this is a really good opportunity, for Mark to be transparent about the hack, so that other people learn from it.
That's
talk about an intelligent man and a wise man, or intelligent person and a wise person, right? Intelligent person learns from their own mistakes. Mark Cuban, having made the mistake, hopefully is intelligent enough to learn from it. And a wise person, we are wise people. We can learn from Mark's experience, meaning that we don't have to commit the same mistake to learn from that experience. What do I mean by that? So being able to understand what exactly happened. Mark mentioned he downloaded another MetaMask wallet, and the MetaMask wallet was the one that was drained, and that is what caused the assets from his wallet to be drained. And an easy way to prevent that is one, making sure that you have a hardware wallet. Don't download any other type of wallets, MetaMask wallet or other software wallet that could be compromised. And two, to make sure that you have the right applications that are authorized to spend from your particular wallet. So MetaMask, you can approve how much a particular application can withdraw. I am with Mariano on this. Doesn't look like it's more of a wallet that was installed. It looks like it's more of a permission to an app that was not managed correctly. And there are a bunch of applications where you can go and revoke the authorization. So make sure you do that. You don't want any application out there that is authorized to spend money from your particular wallet.
Also, I would just add, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Usually refers to your portfolio holdings, but I think you could also apply it to where you hold your holdings, basically. So he could have had, and I'm not saying Mark put all his eggs in one basket. I'm sure he has multiple wallets, but it's just a lesson to consider.
Well. Especially on a wallet like MetaMask that is unstable, that is dangerous. Last week it happened to me. I told BJ about it. So I had a little bit of money on one of my MetaMask wallets, and for some reason Windows decided to reinstall itself, right? And I lost the pop-up of MetaMask in one of my Chrome browsers, right? The other ones were still there, but that one was lost, right? And I was sure, because I wrote it down, that I had the recovery phrase, right? I didn't quite have the recovery phrase, but I had the recover. It was like some sort of private key that is not the 16 or 12 words that you usually get, but a series of codes in the hexadecimal that were derived from that. And I thought, hey, I mean, I have that. That's good, right? That's the only thing I need. But I was confused that I thought that one would unlock all my wallets, and it only unlocked one. So and that wallet wasn't the one that had my assets on. So I had a little bit of a panic mode. Luckily, I reviewed everything, and I had there is a portion of MetaMask that is called the Vault. So the Vault is an archive and that might be or might not be on your computer when you first installed it. And if you remember your MetaMask password, under a very complicated process, you can retrieve the 16 words private key or 12 words or whatever format you used.
Wow.
And thankfully it was there. But yeah, I mean, I remember that I always said that, like, you need to make sure you wrote down your words, and I don't do that myself, so it's like,
oh man, you should help me recover the 12 Bitcoins I lost in 2015.
do you have it in MetaMask?
No, there was no MetaMask back then. We'll talk about it later. Don't get me started.
Good Lord, man. Wow, that's crazy. 12 Bitcoins, baby.
I'll get it. I'll get it when quantum computing becomes mainstream.
That's what's up. Well, so BJ, what are some of those softwares? Maybe is there any that you recommend that revoke permissions for people, and something that obviously we don't necessarily want to recommend something, but if there's things that you've tried before that are effective in doing that. Now you can also do it manually, of course, but is there any of those that you are aware of?
Yeah, I don't remember on top of my head. There was an open source tool available on GitHub that I had used in the past. And I think it's revoke.cc, if I remember correctly.
No, it's revoke.cash. Don't put that, because that's probably a scam. It happened to me. Somebody sent me a revoke cash version that was actually a wallet drainer. Who might that be? But yeah, double sure, triple sure that the one tool that wants to save you is not the one that's gonna kill you.
Yeah, no, that was actually a really interesting day. Like what was it? Someone showed me a Twitter post that there was an issue with MetaMask, and we have to revoke permissions immediately. And I sent the message to Mariano going, "Is this real?" And I would never expect him to click the link. Like, I didn't click the link. I was just going around asking, right? And I should have taken additional precautions, because then Mariano sent it to BJ. And
no. The story is the other way around. BJ sent it to me.
Oh, is it the other way around? Okay, sorry, I'm mistaken. I block bad things out of my mind. Basically, there was almost a situation where one of you got compromised because of that, because we're passing this link around, and it's crazy. We all know how to avoid these things, and we still fall into it every once in a while. It's all like I always say, don't trade when you're tired. Don't touch your MetaMask when you're tired. Always just do it when you're aware, because you never know. It's just like hackers will keep pressing you every day, every hour of every day, until that moment of weakness, that one moment where you're just not paying attention and you click the wrong thing,
Yeah, I mean, we are stepping on all the landmines today. Wow. So it's a good thing that people are hearing this, so that they can express some wisdom to not make the same mistake. Right. So I think it's ultra important. And, the hardware wallets are absolutely critical. If you're not using a hardware wallet, I don't know how many times it needs to be said, especially in lieu of everything that happened with, SBF and FTX and that whole drama. But if you're not using a hardware wallet, man, and you're in this game and you're in crypto, you really got to rethink that. Obviously, if you've got more than a few $1,000s worth, if you got a couple $100s worth, maybe it's not worth it, but it still is worth it, as far as I'm concerned, is just practicing with it and knowing how to use one. That's an absolute necessary skill set in this space. So, with that being said, talking about the next topic, which is Ethereum surpassing Bitcoin with over 1 million daily active addresses. That just happened this last week. Although the asset's price is somewhat stagnant, as is the overall market, the interest toward the network keeps growing. So data from Artemis Terminal reveals that Ethereum, the second largest blockchain network by market cap, has actually surpassed the largest blockchain by market cap, which is Bitcoin. And they've surpassed it in terms of daily active addresses. So what that means is essentially wallets, right? We were just talking about wallets. That's a wallet. Each unique wallet has a unique address. So according to the latest statistics, Ethereum boasts 1.03 million daily active addresses, while Bitcoin stands at 743,000. That's not just a small increase or a small gap. That's a pretty significant gap. Santiment's insights into Ethereum's on-chain tech activity, according to a report by market intelligence platform Santiment, Ethereum's on-chain activity analysis reveals a huge surge in daily active addresses for Ether. And then on September 13th, the number of daily active addresses reached approximately 1.089 million. This surge represents the second highest daily active address count in Ethereum's history, with the highest count recorded on December 9th, coinciding with Ether's retest of its post-2021 bear market losses. So essentially, What do you guys think about this? I mean, is this something sustainable? Is this like Ethereum's past it for good now, and they're off to the races, and now the never looking back, and it's the first phase of the flippening. So what do you guys think about this?
The first place my mind goes to is like, I have so many wallets. I bet you a lot of people have a lot of wallets. So, I mean, what's the criteria for active address?
Yeah, and also
okay,
need to take into account that lately, I would say, like in the past 6 months, everyone is farming airdrops, right? Yeah. So you have literally bots that create hundreds of wallets that they load with a little bit of money and they make them do transactions. So that could alter the results. But ultimately, what I'm thinking is that it's not indicative of the flipping or anything, but it's indicative that people use Ethereum more than they use Bitcoin. And that's pretty, I mean, I think that's been that way since like the past 3 years, I would say, because there's just so many more things that you can do on Ethereum than on rootstock, if you wanna name it.
Well, I mean, you're exactly right, Mario. And aside from ordinals, right, which was pretty much the second use case of Bitcoin, that just happened recently, this year. But there's almost infinite more utility to using Ethereum than there is Bitcoin. So it absolutely makes sense. The whole airdrop mania also makes sense with everybody wanting to create so many more wallets and active addresses. So that makes a lot of sense as well. So I can see that. It's not necessarily a indicator of who's actually behind that, like how many multiple wallets. Now, there are still a lot of people too that hold multiple Bitcoin wallets, right? I would surmise, though, and there's probably some data around this, that not nearly as many duplicate addresses on Ethereum as there is on Bitcoin. So, yeah, we'll see if it continues. What do you guys think?
Warren Buffett gives this famous example or a metaphor between store of value and a productive asset, right? So the store of value is think of it like a piece of art, right? A piece of art holds value. You buy a piece of art, you have it at your home, you can enjoy it, and then maybe you sell it after a period of time. So store of value, the number of transactions is very low. Compared to a productive asset, and Warren Buffett gives this example of a farmland, right? If you have a farmland, you plant some kind of crop in it, you water it, you are removing weeds from it. So you do a lot more activities than compared to a store of value, like a piece of art or even gold. They don't do much, right? It's not a productive asset. And productive assets like a farmland, you would do a lot more activities on them, and it produces some returns. The previous narrative for crypto adoption was Bitcoin, which was a store of value thesis that Wall Street caught on. And store of value maybe can be compared to gold, which is an $8 trillion market, as opposed to a productive asset. If you think of a productive asset, it's the entire stock market, right? That's 150 trillion. So the productive asset thesis is much stronger. And Ethereum is a productive asset. Right now, you can go stake Ethereum, be a validator, and you can get returns, maybe about 4 to 5% on your staked Ethereum. So Ethereum is a productive asset. And the next Wall Street narrative is going to be around Ethereum, is my prediction. And having a productive asset narrative is going to bring a lot more interest towards Ethereum. And Ethereum also doesn't have all the other kind of negative ESG connotation, energy usage that Bitcoin has. So the number of activities that we are seeing in the Ethereum wallet address is one indication of the longer thesis that the productive asset is going to have a much bigger market cap than a store of value, which eventually means that Ethereum flips Bitcoin. And then we're going to see an Ethereum ETF. We saw the ARK Invest. They launched an application with the SEC for an Ethereum ETF. We're going to see tons of other people who are also going to be applying. But overall, it points in the right direction of Ethereum being a productive asset and winning over Bitcoin over the long period of time. Of course, Bitcoin maxis may not like it. Michael Saylor, cough cough, and all the other Bitcoin maxis are so focused on Bitcoin being the winner takes all. And this is like the internet, right? In the internet, there was not a winner takes all. Of course, there were specific segment in which there were winner takes all, meaning that Google was the leading winner takes all for search. However, you also had Facebook, which was the winner takes all for social network. You had Amazon, which is winner takes all for shopping. So you're going to have multiple segment of these categories where there will be a winner takes all within those categories, and you can still compete, right? When Google is there, you can also have Facebook, you can also have Amazon, you can also have Netflix. So there are so many different companies, multi-billion-dollar companies, which are essentially using the underlying technology. Similarly, we are going to have Bitcoin that is going to continue to serve its purpose, Ethereum that's going to continue to serve its purpose, and so many other applications and chains that we haven't seen yet that are also going to continue to exist, and they're all going to be winner takes all within their particular segment.
Michael, anything else there? Do you have anything you want to add? No.
You know, you mentioned like Bitcoin ordinals as well. I'm pretty sure those are dying out. You know, that also adds to the fuel of Bitcoin being essentially useless.
I wouldn't say useless.
But useless compared to Ethereum is what I mean. Yeah, like just relatively speaking, there's this many things to do in Ethereum and this many things to do with Bitcoin.
I think your point is a valid one, VJ. You know, on like we got to be thinking of this as an entire landscape, right? And there's going to be sectors of that landscape, right? Just as Bitcoin is profoundly important for what it is, which is a store of value, right? It's not something, and it is the most powerful, most secure network there is. So for that purpose, hey, it's great. I know I heard someone say years and years ago, but a couple of years ago that, hey, listen, if I want to move, you know, a couple $1 billion, I'd prefer to do it on the Bitcoin network rather than any other network there is, right? But as far as utility, and you know, and I don't maybe care if it gets there in 3 seconds, right? Like buying this, you know, a cup of coffee at Starbucks. I just want to make sure it gets there. So for those reasons, Bitcoin is an absolute, you know, gorilla, right? But it's optimized for a certain purpose and it's engineered for a certain purpose. I think that's important to understand is what is the end use case? What is the end goal of this particular crypto or this particular network or this particular application? Those are the questions we need to ask ourselves. It's like, it's, you know, rather than getting into this fodder of like, okay, you know, I'm superior because I'm an Ethereum maxi or I'm superior because I'm a Bitcoin maxi. That's the wrong question to be asking yourselves. It's like, what is the actual purpose, right? And so I think what you helped underlay that argument very well, VJ, and I appreciate you kind of like drawing the distinctions of, hey, we're going to be having a lot of different, you know, subsets or sectors within this economy. It's an entirely new economy that's being built right before our very eyes. You know, there's going to be, you know, gaming tokens. Who's going to be the best in that? There's going to be, you know, infrastructure tokens. Who's going to be the best in that, right? So understanding that is, you know, you got to compare apples to apples, not apples to oranges. So great frame of that discussion. Thank you for that. Any other, Mariano, is there anything else you wanted to add on that?
No.
Okay, got it. So next topic is Telegram, right? Those of you guys that are using Telegram, you know, we kind of have to use it if we're in the crypto space. Some of us like it, some of us do not. They're adding self-custodial, which we like, right? All right, crypto wallet worldwide, excluding the US. And thank you, Gary Gensler, for that. So Telegram, the popular chat app with 800 million monthly active users, that's pretty big, is getting a self-custodial crypto wallet. I think this is kind of, I don't know, inevitable, but the move is set to solidify its presence in the vibrant crypto community as it emerged from its chat platform and can potentially help drive the masses into the crypto space. Kind of wondered why this wasn't done before, but Telegram and the TUN Foundation, or TUN, jointly announced this new self-custodial wallet called TON Space or TON Space on Wednesday at Singapore's Token 2049 crypto conference, which boasted more than 10,000 attendees. That's actually really good for, I don't want to say it's a bear market because we could be in the beginning of a bull market, but having 10,000 attendees at this time at a crypto conference is highly encouraging. Ever since the FTX implosion, the crypto community has undergone a great reckoning, realizing the need for self-custodial wallets over centralized ones. I think someone said that literally on this podcast, literally on this episode, just maybe about 15 minutes ago. It's worth noting that the wallet wasn't built by Telegram itself. That is worth noting. And the fact that it was a joint announcement brings attention to the history of its complicated relationship with blockchain. All right. So what do you guys think about this? The Telegram adding a self-custodial crypto wallet, except for the US.
It feels like a move to compete against like Discord and maybe get some attention.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure about that. I think it's another step in the way to become more crypto friendly. For example, they had in the past released that the Telegram names that you can have, like for example, Dominic, let's say that your name is @123, right? You could sell that as if it was an ENS name with the TON token, right? Which, by the way, like I'm surprised how it is maintaining its value. So the Telegram Open Network token is top 10 tokens in the whole crypto world, and so far I haven't heard of anyone that has ever purchased it or used it. But yeah, they're very, very interesting.
I don't have any.
Do you do Dominic or BJ?
No, regardless of whether TON token is a good investment or not, what this establishes is there are going to be a lot of other on-ramps. There are going to be so many different on-ramps for people to get on to the crypto network, right? For example, I guess we are seeing the next topic that we're going to discuss. We are already seeing that.
We need our tech guys to switch us over. Hey, tech guys, you over there?
Like
so, but a metaphor to understand is we have a way for bringing on all these people onto this new island. So crypto is an island. We are now bringing on new people into the island. Michael and I are in New York, Manhattan today. I just met someone who has not left the Manhattan Island for the last 6 years. 6 years he's been on the island, hasn't even gone to Brooklyn, which is just across the bridge, hasn't gone to New Jersey, just being in the island. Why? If you're in West Village, you can just walk a few blocks. You can get pretty much any kind of food that you want, anything that you want to buy. Like there is so much entertainment available that they never have to leave the Manhattan Island. So similarly in crypto, once we have enough of this connectivity, enough of ways of being able to do different transactions, right? Being able to get the food that we want, being able to stay at a place that we want, being able to have all the entertainment that we want, we wouldn't need to have all these external connections, but it is going to take some amount of time before we can have that kind of infrastructure. And Telegram is going to be onboarding almost 1 billion people onto this new island of crypto, which is overall very positive. Of course, the news itself hasn't impacted the price of TON or anything in the crypto world because we are in a bear market. But if the same thing has happened in a bull market, the price of TON would have doubled. That we are getting almost 1 billion people onboarded into crypto. Not just the price of TON, right? It would have increased the price of pretty much every single crypto asset had it happened during a bull market.
I tend to agree, BJ, because I think that I have so many normie friends. And one thing I do like about Telegram is that it notifies you when someone in your address book has actually downloaded the app, right? And I find that interesting because there's so many friends of mine that are not necessarily savvy to crypto or interested in crypto, but they have the Telegram app and they're active users of it. Right now, they don't know that it's of its relationship to blockchain or its connection to blockchain, and I think that's what we need in order for real adoption. It's kind of like the people that are using the service don't need to know that blockchain is underpinning it, right? And or what a blockchain is. You shouldn't have to define what a blockchain is in order to actually use blockchain, right? Now we are early, we're pioneers, we're investors. We've been here for many, many years. We saw the potential of this technology. We still see it. Not everybody's like that, right? It's kind of like you talk a little bit about the S curve of adoption at times, right? And then there's the early adopters, and then there's the late adopters. There's innovators, early adopters, late everybody else, the laggards. So there can only be so many people that are early. Most people are just going to be users of the technology. They're not necessarily going to be, interested in what underlies the technology. And so I think that Telegram doing what they're doing is pretty awesome from this perspective, and creating an opportunity for people to actually have a self-custodial application. So yeah, I think it's great. Anybody else? All right. Well, so we're going to go on to, we got to do our daily dose of Stoner Cats, right? Just kidding. But the NFT funded animated series Stoner Cats, which starred Ashton Kutcher and I don't know if it's Mila or Mila, sue me. Mila Kunis fined $1 million by the SEC, as we talked about in a previous episode just a couple of weeks ago. It looks like that also happened with our boy Tom Bilyeu over at Impact Theory, and so it looks like they're coming for all of these, NFT cash grabs is what they're probably referring to them as. Which I'd like to think they're a little bit more up and up than that. But essentially, the SEC. This is another example of the SEC kind of coming after them. So it looks like the series also agreed to destroy all NFTs in its possessions or control and publish notice of the order on its website and social media channels. So the NFT funded animated series starring Ashton Kutcher, Mila Kunis, Chris Rock, Jane Fonda, and more has been fined $1 million by the SEC for conducting an unregistered offering of crypto asset securities and misleading its investors. And it's interesting because I think we've been at several conferences. I think these guys were at VCon. People with Stoner Cats were at VCon, and it seemed like a pretty interesting community. But Stoner Cats, which follows a group of sentient cats as they look after their marijuana smoking owner who is suffering from early Alzheimer's disease, sold more than 10,000 NFTs for a profit of $8 million in order to finance the series. By doing so, the SEC said that the series creator Stoner Cats violated the Securities Act of 1933 by offering and selling these crypto asset securities to the public in an unregistered offering that was not exempt from registration. Go figure. Just hasn't been a good week or two for Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher, but that's beside the point. So, what do you guys think about this? Just more of the same, more of the SEC doing what the SEC does.
So it would be good to know. It would be interesting to know, because I remember on the last NFT sales. Well, actually, it was the first one that we discussed here. I don't remember exactly its name. Do you remember? It was from a podcast. The SEC wasn't in complete agreement. There was a minority of the SEC that thought that
that was Tom Bilyeu for Impact Theory.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So there was a minority on the SEC that didn't agree that it was deemed a security or something. It would be good to expand a little bit on if it says on the article, hey, this was an anonymous decision. Is this case different from the previous one? But
I think it's a shame because both of these groups didn't end up fighting it, and because of that, we're not going to get any clarity. And I think that's really unfortunate. I actually did buy these ones. I have a bunch of Stoner Cats. The cartoon is not bad. It's pretty high production. They really did what they said, but they also promised returns, and they kind of deserve to be scrutinized. I think Mila was really just sort of running an experiment during COVID because she heard about all this new cool stuff and she figured she'd just dive in head first. Honestly, the whole thing's kind of a shit show as far as the community. They didn't although the animation's good and they've delivered some episodes, I'd say they under-delivered as far as the amount of content they said they would deliver. And the community is pretty pretty disparate, so I haven't been able to get a lot of value out of that in itself. But at least they created something. They're the first NFT project to fund a real animation, and we all had hopes that they would partner with the studio, and then we would be part owners in this animation made by Mila Kunis. But none of that's happening now, and they have to. I think they not only have to refund the original purchasers who kept their NFTs, but they have to actually totally get rid of all the cats. So,
Michael was saying that they did not fight. In my opinion, it's a pure violation. A lot of people don't know about the 1934 Securities Act and the 1940s Investment Company Act, because they didn't have to deal with all of this. In one of my previous startups, spent a lot of time, close to $1 million, just legal fees in understanding what these laws and regulations are. And this was a pure violation of the securities law. You cannot sell something as an investment to the general public, right? You can sell it as an investment to someone that you have a previous existing relationship with. You can sell it as an investment to a high net worth individual, but you cannot sell a security or any asset with a gain, with a promise of a gain. So it was a violation of the Securities Act, and they did have to settle with the SEC and pay the fine. But looks like they raised more money than the fine that they paid to the SEC. So
yeah, good deal.
It feels strategic by the SEC, like they didn't fine them enough that it's even worth fighting if they had grounds to fight it.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. It feels like a shakedown, and anyone that's in the public eye that they can target, I feel like they're just going down the list. Maybe they needed some cash over at the XCC.
Yeah, and maybe the payment has to be done every for the next 5 years or something. I just find it so funny that the United States government in a way protects people from doing bad investments, because you need to be a registered investor to invest in things, but you can buy as many Gucci bags as you want. You can do it with a credit card also, because that's a bad investment.
Yeah, Mariano, you definitely hit on it, and Michael, you hit on it as well. And the thing is like it befuddles me. It befuddles me. Okay, so yeah, you're going after these high profile people first, right? Maybe there are more on the list, right? But you're starting with Tom Bilyeu, you're then going to the Ashton Kutcher. Why? Because they're attention grabbing headlines, right? It's like now it's like you're pandering to get headlines. That's why you're going after these groups. And then VJ, you have a point too, and it's a violation, sure. But there's so many other violations if you're gonna hold that line in the sand, right? And granted, to your point, also we're talking about a securities law that I think we can all agree is fundamentally not modernized. Right, it is ineffective to apply that law for this time, for the time in which we're in. We have an entirely new infrastructure, technology infrastructure that the legislators, and the SEC have had time to understand. It's not like that this was invented yesterday or last year or 5 years ago. We're over a decade now, right? Get your shit together. Come up with a policy framework that works, that doesn't push innovation off our shore. I mean, the news article that we just showed, everywhere worldwide, Telegram is available except for the US. That should be a slap in the face if you're a regulator or you're a legislator in this country. I'm sorry, it's getting to the point where it's making it so unfeasible to even transact or operate in this industry if you're on US shores. And it shouldn't be that way. Officially done with my soapbox. And
you're muted. BJ, you're muted.
Oh, good. BJ, you're muted, buddy.
Okay, try again.
Okay, so we need to have the right amount of regulation. We should not be, SEC should not over-regulate or under-regulate. And we need to have the right amount of regulation that allows innovation to happen in the US and at the same time protect the investors from promise of being able to make money from people who are not sophisticated enough to understand the nuances of what really they are buying.
No, I don't disagree with you on that, BJ. I think there does need to be a certain degree of regulation, and it's not so much my stance on anti-regulation, which is not. There is a degree of regulation that should exist. However, it's been over a decade, and we are still operating the absence of that. So if you're a builder in this space, you essentially kind of have to throw a dart at a board and guess where you think, what might be approved and what might not be approved. And not only that, but let's talk about the other thing that this law talks about. Like you effectively have to be an accredited investor. Okay, well, how many accredited investors do you know that are also experts in crypto? They're not. They're not. So just the fact that they got $1 million net worth, or just the fact that they make $200,000 a year, which is the current, line in the sand to qualify as a accredited investor, does not qualify them to understand how to invest in crypto, right? You've got 15-year-olds that have maybe $100 to their name who know far more about how to invest in crypto than their granddads with, multi-million portfolios. So again, there's got to be an understanding of who gets access to what, who can invest in a pre-sale and who can't, right? Like, it shouldn't just be based on how much assets you have, because assets do not convey aptitude. Michael,
I remember seeing that form for the first time and just being like, this is it? Like, this is the criteria? That's so weird. But I just like to add that, man, when they came out with those Stoner Cats, like, we were all so excited because they teased the first episode with Vitalik is one of the voices, Gary Vee is one of the voices, Chris Rock is one of the voices, and you're going, man, this is going to be huge, right? This is a stacked lineup. And they had a studio that was working on it that was also had previously worked on big name productions. So all like the stars were kind of aligning there, and not to mention all the people. All the damage has been done. They're finding after the fact, like, the cats went up in price, all the guys took their money already, and now it's all these bag holders that are just wanting this cartoon to come out. So it's pretty sad that it's kind of getting completely cut off and canceled.
Well, next topic, guys, is this has just happened a couple hours ago. So this is great news that the U.S. Congressman's bill to ban the Federal Reserve from issuing a CBDC has passed the Financial Services Committee. Now, to be clear, it hasn't passed a vote. It hasn't went to a vote on the floor of the House, but it has passed from the committee, which is a big step forward. And so this legislation was, I believe,
hey, Dom, I don't think you're sharing your screen, by the way.
I am sharing.
Oh.
Yeah, it just needs to be, someone needs to click. Someone needs to click.
Okay, go on, whatever.
Check your chat. So nevertheless, the top member, he's been a proponent of crypto for months and years. He's one of the stalwarts that we have in Washington from this industry. He effectively has been promoting this, and the good news is it has passed the House Financial Services Committee. So looking to go to a vote. We'll see what happens there. But what do you guys think about all this? This literally, like I said, just came out a couple hours ago. Fresh news. Mariano, the resident Argentine. What do you think about what's going on here in the U.S.?
So we should. Whoa!
There we go. There it is.
We're breaking everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a good news. I am on the line of thinking that CBDCs.
We do it live.
I'm on the line of thinking that CBDCs are a natural evil for governments to have. It's another tool where they can mint more money immediately with a more immediate effect on the economy. And I'm happy to find that there is someone that say, hey, we want regulation to prohibit this. So I think it's a good thing. It's still a long battle, but it's good. I was actually surprised. I was looking at an infrastructure provider for blockchain that is called Kaleido, and I was talking with one of the representatives yesterday, and there's so many countries that are doing CBDC like trials, from what he told me, that they use their infrastructure. Not just the ones that we see on the news, Russia and China and all those, but many more. In fact, SWIFT, the international interbanking network system, is doing one trial with CBDCs. So also,
I'm interested in VJ what you have to say about this, because I know that in the past you've said that you think that a CBDC is inevitable. So I'm wondering if this does. I mean, this is just obviously passing committee. This doesn't necessarily mean anything on the grand scheme of things. But does the probabilities change in your view that we have an inevitable CBDC in the United States?
Yeah. So we can determine the direction in which we are heading, right? No one knows the future, but we can determine the direction in which we are heading. And in my opinion, CBDC is inevitable. There might be some bumps along the way. I don't know if it's going to happen in the next year or so. We are seeing early sprouts of it. That's happening in China. India is about to launch their version of CBDC. The UPI, the payment network in India, is far ahead of what we have here in the US. I was really surprised. I was in India recently, and even the vegetable sellers, they have digital payments, and it's becoming a much more of entirely digital cashless society in a country like India, which I never thought would happen sooner than it could happen in the US. So other countries are going to innovate on this and continue to innovate on this. Japan also has launched a CBDC initiative. And in my opinion, it is just a matter of time. The Fed now, which is the US's version of CBDC framework, they've been testing it out with MIT. There is Project Hamilton, if you guys want to look it up, which is also another initiative for CBDC. So whether it happens next year or 3 years from now, 5 years from now, it is inevitable CBDC is going to happen. And we may not have the consensus right now from a political perspective for being able to do it at this point in time. But at some point in time, that consensus will change as the global consciousness, education, or awareness around it changes. And as we see other countries doing it, it's also going to happen in the US. So in my opinion, it's just a matter of time. Yes, it won't be a straight line. There will be some bumps along the road. And we are going to see that happen in our lifetime.
Wow, I have to admit, I'm a little concerned about a society in which we have nothing but CBDCs. That's to me is a little bit concerning. But what about you, Dominic? Yeah, what about you guys?
Cash is one of the most beautiful things that you can ever have. It has a lot of imperfections, but it's always available. It's impossible to freeze, and everyone accepts it, right? So with CBDCs, we don't have that. We have a system that will likely be controlled by the government that can shut you down or freeze your account for any reason whatsoever because they hold the power, and that if it's accepted as the only method of payment, then you're screwed in a way, right? Because you are only going to depend on that system to do your everyday transactions, to buy a house, to buy an Apple, whatever, all those things. So I think it's good that we maintain a secondary accepted form of payment in society, and not to rely or promise by law or to make law that everything has to be like a standard way of doing it with one method of payment, right? With CBDCs in this case. I think that's a bad idea. But yeah, we'll see what the future holds for us.
Yeah, so I'm not arguing on whether it's a good idea or not. I do think that we need to have personal freedom. People need to have the freedom to do what they want with their cash. And the CBDC might include ways of the government monitoring that discussion. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the inevitability of us having CBDC. The transition is not going to be immediate, right? Like, we saw internet come on, and the newspapers still exist. We have New York Times that are being published. Yes, it's not at the same level as what it was before. The vinyl, people are still using vinyl and CD to listen to music, and we have streaming music, and streaming music is inevitable. So similarly, we are going to have CBDC that are inevitable. It doesn't mean that cash and other stuff are going to go away. That's going to take a long time. However, if you think about what's happening in the case of someone like Tether, right? So Tether is doing a stable coin, which is essentially a digital dollar. And it made $2 billion in profit in the first quarter. They have like 65 employees or so. And it turns out it's like close to, I need to do the math here, maybe like $75 million revenue per employee. It's one of the most profitable businesses in the world is Tether. Compared to Apple, Apple has $1 million revenue per employee because they do have retail store. Compared to Netflix, which is a completely digital business, it's $2 million revenue per employee. Compared to Starbucks, it's about $120,000 revenue per employee. Compared to McDonald's, right, which is close to around $60,000 or $70,000 revenue per employee. So as you see, the more digitized things become, the more revenue per employee increases. And Tether is, insane, the most highest valued company in terms of revenue per employee. Doesn't even compare to any other publicly traded company. Banks are looking at this and going, hey, how do we get into this game? Right? Banks, they lend out money, and the way they lend out money, it's regulated, right? They cannot take customer deposits and lend it out right away. There is a way of being able to do that, and they typically make like 1% on their assets under management, if that. So banks cannot re-authenticate customer deposits, whereas Tether can, and they are going to get into the game. And if there is more of a CBDC or a digital way of doing it, then banks can increase their profit margin and the revenue that they're going to earn. So you have so many different forces that are coming in. Wall Street doesn't ever run away from making fees. And if they see Tether making $2 billion in revenue per quarter, for doing what? Nothing. They just took the money and they park it in treasuries. They issue some tokens. It's a pretty simple, straightforward, easy business. Same as USDC Circle. These are massively profitable businesses at this point in time because you have the banks, the incumbents, right? They're not going to let companies like Tether and Circle be able to take their fee. Their whole business, their whole motto is to be able to take fees on transactions. They will figure out a way to get into the game, and CBDCs are one way in which banks would be able to get into the game.
If only. Go ahead, Michael.
I was going to say, I hope Tether pays their employees well, but I did hear a story a couple of days ago. It's about this guy who was in Thailand or Taiwan or somewhere, and he was saying that they have very rigid rules there in Thailand. You can't even litter. If you litter, you're in big trouble. So this guy, he was having an ice cream at a subway stop, and the cops came and they said, "You can't have food here. You can't have food in our subways." And he's like, "Okay, well, I don't see any like garbage cans around because I don't have garbage cans in the subways." And they were like, "Oh," like he's like, "Where do you want me to put it?" They're like, "Oh, well, you can finish your ice cream then." So the moral is sort of they really like the rules there. Yeah. And I think of the CBDC thing is, banks really like the rules, and there's pros and cons that come out of it. So like maybe you don't get your freedom, but your subways are really clean. Yeah. So
that is definitely unfortunately going to be that's unfortunately going to be a trade-off that many people are going to be forced to make, I think. And to your point, Michael, I think that might have been Singapore, from my understanding, is because Singapore is extremely rigid, but they're extremely clean. It's a very, very clean place. It's also an island. It's like 3 million people, I think, that live there. But nevertheless, so it's easier to kind of control and govern that inside of a small space like that. But nevertheless,
definitely.
No worries, man. No, it's funny because I just watched something on Singapore the other day. And go
it's
ahead,
also
PJ.
human nature as to how the question is framed, right? The old story of this guy going to the priest and saying, hey, can I smoke while I'm praying? And the priest was like, no, when you're praying, you're not supposed to smoke. And then he was like, okay, no, while I'm smoking, can I pray? And the priest is like, of course, you're smoking and you're supposed to pray, but it's essentially the same thing. And the way in which we frame it matters. And I guess that's what law is all about, making sure that there is clear definition of what is a violation of the law and what's not violation of the law, regardless of how it's framed. And that's very difficult to do with human beings.
Absolutely. So in closing, anybody got any closing comments before we let everybody go?
We'll do it live.
I have a question. If the world moves into CBDCs, how will strip places work, right? Because you need to throw the money. How will you throw the money to the girl in the pole with CBDCs?
Don't ask
Mariano, you're going to find out when you are dancing on the stripper pole.
Don't ask me how I know this, but I think
I'm going to send you ice cream stickers and.
There are some camera sites on the internet where Mariano, maybe you need to. I can send you the link later, where you'll see how people get paid when they are dancing on the poles.
Yeah. You could think OnlyFans, but you could also think the NPC trend on TikTok.
Oh yeah, like ice cream, so good, that one.
Yeah. They get paid in stickers, but then they convert it somehow.
I just heard my teenage daughter refer to another kid in school as an NPC, and I was like, what's an NPC? And
Dom's never played a video game.
What's an NPC? And she told me, and I cracked
Yeah.
out laughing. Like I was laughing so hard because hearing my teenage daughter say that was just pretty funny.
That's really funny.
Anyways, it's been a pleasure, everybody. Bitbrain Podcast, episode 11 in the books. Everybody have a great week. See you next week.
Bye, guys.
Okay, bye.
Okay, let's do it. Well, that's my bad. No, it's not my bad.
Closing video.
It's okay, I'll edit it.